Are you doing okay? Awesome, man. I hope you had an amazing Christmas and off to a great year. I love you. So good to see you. Missed your faces last Sunday, but so happy that we're together today. And I'm excited because we're continuing through the book of Mark. We started this series in the fall, and we're going to continue it on for the next 13 years, or however long it takes us to do it. But I'm enjoying it. We're going to be in Mark chapter 4, verse 35, if you want to turn there. If you don't have a Bible with you, we're going to have all the scriptures on the screen in just a moment. You can follow along with us, but we're going to continue on. And today we come to a really familiar story that maybe you've heard before, but I'm going to pull out a couple things that hopefully will be fresh and new to you. But this is a story that's repeated 3 times in the Gospels. Matthew 8, Luke 8, and here in Mark chapter 4. It's Jesus calming the storm. And the setting is the Sea of Galilee. I've been there. Beautiful, beautiful. But it's also called Gennesaret, and it's the Sea of Tiberias. Or actually, it's a town that Herod Antipas built there around the west side and still called Tiberias today. It's also called Chinnereth, which is the Hebrew word for violin, because if you look at a map, it's actually shaped like one. But this is the lowest in terms of sea level of any body of water on the globe. And if you kind of look, if you stand, it's really more like a lake. You can kind of see all around it. It's only 7 miles across, but you can see the hills of Galilee to the west, and the Golan Heights to the east, and Mount Hermon to the north. And what we know is that when the winds come down off of those hills, it creates massive storms on the water, and the waves can just be incredibly high, and it can be pretty scary if you're on a boat. And that happens today, but actually it's more than that. What we're going to find out is it's actually a little bit extra, and Jesus comes to the rescue here in the middle of this storm. So let's read it. Mark chapter 4, verse 35. It says, "On that day, when evening had come, Jesus has been teaching all day. He's exhausted. It's been pouring out. He said to them, 'Let us go across to the other side.' And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. And other boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. I think Luke says it was nearly swamped. But he was in the stern. He's in the back of the boat. He's asleep on the cushion." How many of you guys, anybody have a friend or a loved one who can literally sleep anywhere? How many of you guys are that person? How many of you guys are married to that person? It doesn't matter. You start a road trip, you're driving, you look over, gone, right? You start a new show, we settle in with popcorn, right? And we got our Coke Zeros. We're like, here we are, we're going to watch the show. Gone, right? You didn't make it 10 minutes into the show, right? Well, here's Jesus sleeping on a cushion in this boat. And it says, and he awoke, don't miss this. And they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said to them, "Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great fear and said to one another, "Who then is this that even the wind and the sea obey him?" I want to point out something because there's an interesting word that you see repeated 3 times in here. It's the word great. And it's actually the Greek word mega, right? And so in verse 37, it says there was a great windstorm, a mega windstorm. And then in verse 39, after that, there was a great calm. There was a mega calm. And then in verse 41, after it's all over, they were afraid during the storm. And then after Jesus calms the storm, it says they were mega afraid. So very interesting, mega storm, mega calm, mega fear on their part, and we'll come back to that in a second, but I want to give you a couple takeaways as we move through this just kind of little by little. And the first thought is this: Jesus never promised a storm-free life. He never promised it. In fact, these guys had Jesus in their boat, and on top of that, I don't know if you've thought about this, it was Jesus' idea to get in the boat and go across to the other side. And I think that's really interesting. That's important to think about because you might be in the middle of a storm in your life, just a storm of worry and stress and pain and heartache and fear, whatever it is. But that doesn't mean necessarily that you're doing something wrong. it might mean you're doing something right. Just because you're in a storm doesn't mean that you're out of the will of God. You might be right smack dab in the middle of God's will for your life, and God is with you in the boat, and God is leading you. It's His idea for you to cross the lake in the first place. Can I just tell you something? If Jesus said that you're going to get to the other side, you're going to get to the other side, right? You can trust Him, you can obey Him, you can follow Him, and the winds might be contrary, but it won't be the end of you. They're right in the middle of God's will. They're doing exactly what Jesus told them to do, and the winds come. Now, sometimes God sends storms. He sent one to knock Jonah out of his boat when he was running from the call of God on his life. Sometimes storms come because the world is broken, right? This is a sin-cursed world. Sometimes storms come because there's an enemy who's trying to keep you from getting to the other side of the sea, right? But Jesus never said, we got to just come to terms with this, wrap our hearts around it, and let our faith rise up to it. Jesus never said, if you follow me, thou shalt have an easy life. That's not in there. It's not in there. In fact, He said in John 16:33, I have said these things to you that in me you may have what? Peace. In the world you will have tribulation. But take heart, I have overcome the world. Has anybody ever read that verse and be like, Lord, I'll take the peace and just leave the tribulation if that's okay? And He said, no, you get both. But I promise you, you'll never have one without the other. You'll never have tribulation without my peace. In fact, I've told you all of this. I overcome all of this. We win. I win. If you're with me, you win, right? And in the midst of tribulation, you can have peace. In the midst of a storm, you can have me, and that makes all the difference, right? You'll have my peace. Now, I love this story because it's a short story, right? It's only 150 words in the ESV. And when you look at it, though, it's not without a lot of detail. And I think that's so neat. Look at Mark 4, verse 36. And leaving the crowd, they took Him with them in the boat just as He was, and other boats were with Him. So it tells us it was evening. He was leaving the crowd, and they took Him as He was, right? It's details. Like, man, Jesus wearing the same shirt He was wearing when He was preaching to the crowd. He didn't even change clothes. He just get right in the boat, right? It tells us there were other boats. It tells us where on the boat Jesus is sleeping, and it tells us He's on a cushion, right? All those things are indicators, and that might be meaningless to you. That's like, oh, those are just random details, but I think they're not random. I think it's intentional because it actually points to an eyewitness account. There was literally somebody in that crowd who went with Him in that boat, who saw Him sleeping where He was sleeping with His head on the pillow, and he knows exactly what that pillow looked like, and he wanted you to know He was there. This really happened. This is Peter telling Mark this story for us of what exactly happened on that day. And I say that to say this. This is not a fairy tale. This is a real story about a real Jesus who has real power when you're facing the real storms of life. And that should encourage you, and that should comfort. I know it does me. This is real. And this storm came out of nowhere. If you look over in Luke chapter 8, it says they sailed, right? So it's a nice, calm night. They're just cruising along. It's not a long voyage. It's 7 miles across the Sea of Galilee, but they're just flying. And all of a sudden, verse 37, a great mega windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat. So the boat was already filling. It was almost swamped. Mark and Luke use a word that can be translated as a great tornadic wind. And the disciples are freaking out. Have you ever thought about this? This is not like just an everyday storm. These are seasoned fishermen that are like, we gone. We're not going to make it through this one. This is too big. This is too much. We're literally on a little boat in a tornado. Matthew chapter 8 uses the word seismos, which is where we get the word seismic from. So it's possible that while there's a tornado happening, there's an earthquake happening, and the ground is shaking. It's creating even bigger waves, and that's what's going on. They're on a little bitty boat in the middle of a tornado, hurricane, earthquake, all the stuff happening at once, and Jesus gets up in the middle of all that, and the Bible says He rebukes the storm. And what I love about this is it's the same language that we saw in Mark chapter 1 when He confronts the demoniac. Remember the guy in church who's like going crazy and Jesus is like, stop, right? And he obeys. Jesus gets up from his power nap in the middle of a storm and confronts this storm, right? And that tells me something. This is a natural storm, but it's spiritual. It's also supernatural. It's like satanic, demonic, it's severe. So is it natural? Yes. Does it have spiritual undertones? Yes, absolutely. And they're out in this little boat that holds 15 people at most. They had the sail up, cruising along, and all of a sudden that boat is being tossed around with all the other boats. And the disciples are like, where is Jesus? What in the world is he doing? Right? Verse 38, he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we're perishing? Now, I think every single person in this room can relate to that verse. Every single person in this room has been right there. God, don't you see what I'm going through? Right? Everything is going wrong. The unexpected has happened. The worst day has come. My heart has been ripped out of my chest, and I'm hurting like I've never hurt before. I've got more pain than I even thought it was possible to feel. And the thought pops in your head, I'm not even sure God cares. I'm not even sure he really loves me. God, if you love me, this would not be happening. My boat would not be flooded. If you loved me, my family member wouldn't have got sick, or I wouldn't be sick. If you loved me, I wouldn't have lost my job. If you loved me, I wouldn't have lost that child. If you loved me, I wouldn't have bigger bills to pay than I got in the account. Lord, I've been faithful. I've trusted you. If you loved me, you wouldn't have allowed this situation. But I love what happens next in verse 39. He awoke and rebuked the wind and the sea, and he said, Peace, be still. And in the Greek language, it is literally, be muzzled, shut up. I love it that Jesus got up and was like, anybody ever acted a fool in the back seat? And then like your old man like reached that arm around and you were like, don't move. Because whoever moves is getting slapped. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, like, but just the chaos shut down immediately. So Jesus gets up from this nap and he's like, shut up. And you know what the storm did? Shut up. The wind ceased and there was a mega windstorm, and now there's a mega calm. Not just any calm, mega calm, right? And if you've been on the water, you know this, right? Even when the wind stops and there's calm, the waves, it takes a while for the waves to calm. It's still choppy. But this is like, he says, peace, be still, and it's so calm, you could see your pretty face reflected in the water, like immediately, right? And here's what everyone was thinking in that boat, and everyone around, because the ancients all understood, only God can control the seas. Only God can tell the seas what to do. So Jesus, one more time, is going, yep, that's me. I'm God. I'm he. I just told the storm to stop storming, and it obeyed me, right? And what I love about this story, what's even greater than that to me, is how Jesus woke up. I want you to think about this. When the tornadic winds couldn't wake him, Jesus was stirred by the cries of his people. When his child cries out for help, Jesus comes running, and what does he say? Peace, right? I love it. I love it. As we go into this year, and as we have our week of prayer in a couple weeks, I'm so excited about that because I believe God's going to meet us. And I want to just call our whole church to this. Obviously, we're going to be praying all year long, and you love God, so you're always praying. But I think God can do something amazing if we all unite our faith for just 7 days and just go all in and pray and fast. And if you can, show up, pray with us in the mornings. Come up here during the day if you want to. The sanctuary will be open. Take part in a fast in some way. Pray about how God would lead you to do that. Maybe I think that for many of us, maybe you'll do like a sun up to sundown, or 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. fast, and fast during that time, or maybe fast the whole day, or whatever God would lead you to do. But take a step closer to him, draw in intensity and intimacy. And let's believe we're going to have, devotions on Facebook and just to kind of follow along with. But I'm excited about that. We're going to have a prayer and worship night that Wednesday night. But what God might do if we all pray. If we unite and pray, what could God do in your life? What could God do in our church? What could God do in the city, in this world? And I believe it will help prepare us for whatever may come. And most of all, I know there's a lot of people in this room that need peace. And you can't get that anywhere else. Not real peace. You can't get that anywhere else but Jesus. And I want to say this to you. Peace is not the absence of something. It's the presence of someone. The one who said, in this world you will have trouble. Don't be surprised, but take heart. I've told you these things so you can have peace. I have overcome the world. It says to his disciples in verse 40 of Mark 4, why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith? And they were filled with great fear and said to one another, who then is this that even the wind and the sea obey him? And the word for fear here is referring to two phobias, like great fear, intensified fear, very, very afraid. And I was like, wait a minute though. The storm stopped. Why are they afraid? Can I just tell you something? To be in the presence of Almighty God, to truly witness his power, is to be absolutely terrified. Right? Because more scary than a storm outside your boat is God, very God, on the inside of your boat. To have the awareness of who's actually sitting beside you, right? See, fear of a storm had turned into a holy, reverential fear of the one true God. It moved from, surely we're going under, we're going to die, we're not going to make it through this, to, wow, Jesus is amazing. Man, he's awesome. He's big. He's all powerful. And that God is in my boat. And he does care. And he does hear me cry and pray. He does hear my prayers. He does love me. Can I tell you something? There is nothing that you will face in 2024 that's bigger than the God who is in your boat. I can promise you that. I tell you, you're going to be okay because God is with you. God is in your boat. God, very God, the one who wakes up from naps and tells storms to stop storming, and the storms listen. He answered their initial question. God, do you even care that we're perishing? Jesus, don't you notice what I'm going through? We do the same thing. We question his care. We doubt his love for us, and we can see ourselves. I don't know if you can, but I can see myself in those disciples. And maybe you're asking the same questions today. What would Jesus say? How would he respond? He wants you to know he loves you so much, that he hears your cries, he hears your prayers. And at the same time, there's a challenge. Right? Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith? I'm thinking, we just went through a tornado quake. That's why I'm afraid. Or what do you mean? But it's as if he's saying, if you knew that I was with you, and you knew who I was, and what I could do, there's no reason for you to panic. Yes, the storm is real. See, Jesus is saying to them, that their premise in life is all wrong. They had the idea that if Jesus loved them, they'd never have to have any problems. And that's easy for us all to go there. I mean, if God cares, we wouldn't have trouble. But if you start life with that promise, you'll come to the wrong conclusion every single time. The point is, they have a problem, but the issue is not, does Jesus care? Does Jesus love? Does Jesus power? The issue is their faith, right? Jesus says, I do allow people I love to go through storms, but that doesn't mean you have any reason to panic. Have you still no faith? Man, you've seen me work miracle after miracle after miracle. And you've been with me day after day after day. He's asking them. And as we read this, I think he's asking us, where's your faith? And where's our faith in 2024? If your faith is in yourself, what you can do, how you can resolve problems, how you can fix the world, that's a very shaky place to put your faith. If your faith is in a doctor or an employer or the economy or a government or another person, that's a very shaky place. Because our faith is, if it's ultimately in anything or anyone else besides God, you will be disappointed. And here's the irony. Most of us, even though our faith is not in God, we'll still blame God for the outcome. But Jesus says, if you would have trusted in my love for you, you wouldn't have been afraid. Come on, even when it seemed like the boat was going to sink. See, Jesus has the power to stop the storm. He has an awareness of what's happening. But I'll just say this, even if he doesn't stop the storm as quick as we want him to, he's got a very good reason. And he has wisdom that's greater than ours. And here's what I've come to bank on. These are in the words of a very old song that we used to sing. The one who calms the raging seas is able to calm the storms in me every time. Have you been there in your life where it doesn't seem like the storm around you is calming quite quick enough, and yet there's a peace on the inside that's greater than the storm on the outside? There's a peace that passes all understanding that God gives you. And it only comes from God. See, the disciples thought he didn't love them because he hadn't stopped the storm. And he was saying, if you knew how much I loved you, you would have had peace through the whole thing. So, to end this message, every like commentary that I read about this part of Mark's gospel, this story, they kept making the comparison to, and I'd never really thought about it before, they made the comparison to the story of Jonah. And if you haven't read the story of Jonah, you should go read it. It's in the Old Testament. It's a really cool story. But I wanted to compare that real quick. Is that okay? Have you ever thought about the similarities between this moment in the life of Jesus and the disciples and the story of Jonah? Think about this. Just bear with me. Both Jonah and Jesus were in a boat, okay? Both boats encountered storms, and the descriptions are almost identical. Some of the same words used in both accounts. Both Jesus and Jonah were asleep in the bottom of the boat. In both accounts, the sailors come and they wake them up telling them, we're dead, we're toast, we're goners. In both stories, there's a miraculous calming of the sea. In both stories, the sailors, after the sea is calm, are actually more terrified than they were during the storm. And the two stories are so similar with one big difference. If you remember the story of Jonah, when they said, you better call on your God to do something, Jonah said, there's only one thing to do. There's only one way to save your lives and be done to stop this storm. You got to throw me overboard. If I die, you live. And they threw him into the sea, and immediately, right, it was calm. And then what happened? A big old fish came, right? Big old whale came and swallowed Jonah up, and he spent 3 days in the belly of the well, or you could say the grave. And do you remember what Jesus said in Matthew's gospel? He said, one greater than Jonah is here, right? And in essence, he's saying, the only way for you to live is if I die. And they threw him into the storm of sin and death and the fury of God's judgment, and he took our place. Why? Because he loved us. Can I just tell you something? If he didn't abandon you and me in the ultimate storm, what makes us think he'll abandon us in the smaller storms of life? The cross is forever the demonstration of God's love for us, and man, it gives us confidence in every single season. I love Romans chapter 8, verse 31. What then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? And you say, how do I know he loves me? How do I know he'll calm the storm? How do I know that in the midst of this storm that won't relent, that he cares for me, that he sees me? Look at the next verse. He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also with him graciously give us all things? Can I tell you something? If the Father sent the Son because he loved you, he will care for you in this storm. You are not alone. God, very God, is with you in your boat. And there is nothing that is happening or will happen this year that is greater and more powerful than the God who's with you. Come on, do you believe that? I want to invite you to stand. I was reading the words of a hymn, and it struck me, made me think of this passage. Maybe you'll remember it. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly trust in Jesus' name. On Christ, the solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. When darkness veils his lovely face, I rest on his unchanging grace. In every high and stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. On Christ, the solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. Father, thank you. God, thank you for this sweet reminder of your presence with us, the peace you give us. God, the power that you have over the enemy and the world, and God, and everything in it. You're in total control. And we don't have to panic. I thank you, Lord, for your presence here today. Thank you for just reminding every single person how much you love us. It's unquestionable. God, it's eternal. And it's not really even based on our performance or how good we are or how bad we are. It's all about what Jesus did for us in our place. And God, we receive that fresh and anew. You're not leaving this boat. You're with us till the end, and we trust you. Thank you for your peace today. Peace is not the absence of problems. It's the presence of the Prince of Peace.